10th edition of Warhammer 40,000 is fun when you have so many detachments to pick from for your playstyle, and there are no limits on the paint scheme and the lore having to match the detachment. They just have to be the same faction. Your yellow Space Marines can use any of the Space Marine detachments, and you can use the Dark Angels and Deathwatch detachments if you want, as long as you don't include any other chapter units. Yellow Space Marine jump packs. If you're going to be big and obvious and not use camo, why not fly at the enemy? This month, the Grotmas month, has been fun for the extra detachments we have to inject more spice into the game, especially if you only had one detachment that you had to use for the last year and a half. The Imperial and Chaos Knights are such factions. We have seen them in plenty of armies as they are allies to other factions with abilities like the Free Blades rule. But now there is a detachment to reverse that and pull it the other way. Other units being brought over from friendly factions to the Knights, and I don't just mean Chaos Demons and Imperial Agents. I definitely don't mean Imperial Agents. The Imperial Agents codex feels like it is being gutted as Deathwatch players have an index now, so they will leave the temporary shelter of the Imperial Agents codex and return to their own familiar index home. I have 2 videos out explaining the changes to the army and the changes to the units and tactics. You can still play Imperial Agents with Deathwatch units from the Imperial Agents Codex and Legends PDF. That is how you get a Proteus kill team. The Imperial Agents could have really done with a detachment to requisition Imperial Guard, or Sisters of Silence, or both. There are forces known to fight for the Inquisition or be transported by the Imperial Navy. One of the boarding action detachments is about Imperial Guard being transported by the Navy. Or the Imperial Guard can act as a distraction while the Grey Knights strike at the Demon Prince, before turning on the Guard survivors to prevent the knowledge that demons can be summoned from spreading to the Imperial citizens at large. We know that Imperial Agents need an army rule. Their current army rule is comparable to the Knight Freeblade ability to ally into other factions, but the Knights also get an army rule for working as their own army in their own codex. Hopefully the December rules update will resolve that omission. Instead, the Imperial Agents got the Veiled Blade Elimination Force, a Codex Assassins without it being Codex Assassins. It isn't great, but there is a way to run it and have it work. The big Knights come first. And it doesn't matter what Knight players wanted, this is what the AdMech players wanted. Yes, until it gets changed, the Halo Screed detachment can be used to target allied Knights, because that detachment rule is not keyword locked. But this is the real way that Imperial Knights and AdMech armies come together like never before. In the past, you could have your Knights allied to Mars instead of the Imperium as a whole, but this detachment wants them so close that they are walking in lockstep. Tech Priests heal Knights of any size for D3 wounds, and that Tech Priest is not limited to healing one Knight. He could be surrounded by Knight armages with autocannons, and all of them would get helped. The Mechanicus units in turn reroll all hit rolls of 1 all of the time, and reroll wound rolls of 1 if within 6 inches of a Knight of any size. There are limits on the number of Mechanicus units you can take, a mere 25% of your army, and only a few Tech Priests and Skitarii units are available as options. It isn't a full melding of the 2 armies. This will remain a mostly Imperial Knights army. To make the most of it, having a Tech Priest with the Magos Questoris upgrade will be able to have Lone Operative without needing a bodyguard to protect them, and they heal 2 wounds on a Knight in the command phase, in addition to the healing from the detachment rule. The points for that enhancement will count towards the percentage of points that comes from the AdMech side of the army. But the extra wounds are valuable. Another Tech Priest could follow around a big gun Knight and stay safe within their own Skitarii bodyguard. Although it is just 25%, it is great to see how 2 armies can be combined. Having enhancements for the allied in faction is something missing from the Brood Brothers Auxilia. Oh, I'm going to be comparing everything today to the Brood Brothers Auxilia. And the stratagems are a mix of working on Knights and working on AdMech, working on AdMech to avenge a Knight, or a nice one to give a Knight Overwatch. It is Overwatch in almost all but name. Overwatch was changed to not be able to affect towering units. This only affects 1 weapon, but the massive flame cannon is the only weapon you need. Even though the AdMech are limited to 25%, I am looking at this and seeing how the Brood Brothers Auxilia can be improved. That's despite them having up to 50% of the army from the Astra Militarum Codex. Sorry, I mean Index, soon to be Codex. Also the Imperial Armor stuff and the Legend stuff. Astra Militarum faction keyword. The Brood Brothers Auxilia is the only Genestealer cult detachment that struggles right now, and half of the stratagems can or should be removed. If you are making your own detachment or improving a chosen detachment, we are getting loads of examples this month of how it can be done, especially if you want to combine two factions into one detachment. But more on that at the end of this video. The Chaos Knights have a similar detachment and have a fun twist on the Chaos Space Marine faction rule. Your knights can gain sustained hits or lethal hits by effectively stepping on nearby cultists, and you can take a wonderful 50 cultists in a 1000 point game. They are battle line, so you can have more than 3. Between the cultists, the traitors, the cultists with firearms, any other legend units like the Galapox Infected, and accursed cultists, you should have enough bodies to hold objectives and allow your knights to get to the important task of killing the enemy. Accursed cultists can do that too. If a knight can keep pace, an accursed cultist mob with a dark commune will especially appreciate the detachment rule to reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. Most of all on the turn when the dark commune launches the +1 to hit and +1 to wound. A big unit can cause a big mess. After they are done with their once per game ability, step on them. It's too easy to make that a joke. I'm not going to make the joke. But the Chaos Icon in the Dark Commune lets you reroll the leadership test, which will limit the amount of cultists that need to die to give the sustained hits or lethal hits. It is unfortunate that this destroys the models instead of causing mortal wounds, because some cheeky feel no pain saves on the accursed cultists could have come in handy. And I like the enhancements, especially the cheap ones for combining cultists and knights. 5 points for the Tyrant's Banner can order cultists to sacrifice themselves for the glory of the machine. You don't need to be nearby, just in line of sight. So you get to move your knight forward, and then the 10 cultists on your home objective move out so one of them can see the knight. That model, at least, is sacrificed and the cultists are back out of line of sight from the enemy. Having 10 cultists instead of 8 cultists was never going to be an important factor to deter deep striking enemies like Seraphim. The Seraphim can kill those cultists regardless. Having cheap bodies for objectives and actions is a wonderful thing for the Chaos Knights to have. Cultists win games. I know from experience of playing Chaos Space Marines since objective markers were introduced into the game. The only way that this particular flawless tactic could go wrong is if 6 cultists died and the unit became battle shocked afterwards. Well, fear not, because cultists have sticky objectives, so you would keep scoring victory points. Just the sticky objective cultist is a great bonus to the Chaos Knight army. Pave the Way is an enhancement that gets some cultists up there right away, probably to meet the Imperial Agents encouraged on by Inquisitor Karamazov, who has the same ability. One of the damned units you pick to get scouts should be Dark Communes in Accursed Cultist units. The Accursed Cultists already have Scout, and they want to Scout, but they aren't able to unless every model in the unit can Scout. This gets around the problem. More scouting is always appreciated. The stratagems, again, show the relative weakness of the Brood Brothers Auxilia. Worthless Chattel is 1 command point instead of the 2 command points for acceptable losses. It will wreck a damned unit, as a cultist is destroyed on a 4+ for every wound the enemy unit in engagement range lost. So a 20 wound Space Marine unit will see the cultist dead too. I would fall back. That is free. Unless you were on an objective and really needed it to risk the cultist dying at the same time. Then it's worth it, and it's very flavorful. Wretched Masses is 2 command points, but at least it works all of the time. Unlike the Brood Brothers Auxilia Regimental Reinforcements that only works on a 3+. You could lose your big 20-man infantry squad or Kazakin and have no way of keeping them despite that stratagem existing. Consistency is worth the extra command point. I have little to say on the other stratagems beside reading them out loud, so I've just cut that part of the video. You can read the stratagems for yourself. The link to these detachments is in the description. Now I must turn to the Allies faction, the Agents, and their new detachment. The Elimination Force has flavour. It is assassin focused, which has been a community wish for a while. But there is a lot to dislike. The detachment lets the assassins use their once per game ability a second time, apart from the Calidus assassin who doesn't have one. But half of the detachment rule is a penalty. For each assassin you take, you have to include their enhancement. They are compulsory, and of course you will take assassins in this detachment. Each assassin is an epic hero, so can only be included once, and the compulsory enhancements will mess with your points if you try and use the shadow assignment ability to swap them out for a different assassin. The 4 assassins with their enhancements combined is 580 points. That is a lot of points for characters that don't support the rest of the army. But this detachment has little to help its units. I know I'm thinking from a Deathwatch agent's point of view, but they are the most expensive infantry units that can be boosted the most by the stratagems. Yeah, I can have sustained hits for 1 command point, or I can play the Alien Hunters detachment and have it army-wide for a whole battle round, and I can still spend a command point to have it again on a unit. Blind grenades will make the enemy a mighty -1 to their charge rolls. That will almost exclusively be used against the already unlikely 9-inch charge that units have from reserves. With hyperstims, it's 2 command points to get +1 toughness on a character unit. That is a big investment, requires the unit to have a character in it, and at best it is -1 to wound against attacks. But if subsequent attacks were already strength 6, that doesn't change the wound roll against a Deathwatch unit. So there isn't much for basic agent units. But why should we care about them? This is the Assassin detachment and you play it for fun. You want to play it against an opponent that has a lot of characters. Genestealer Cult is performing well at the moment with their cheap bodies and powerful force multiplying characters. That is the target. And if you play at 1000 points, then the assassins are a significant part of your army and you can focus your strategy and stratagems around them while the rest of the agents do their true job of sitting on objectives. In a 2000 point game, the assassins as the main focus of the list would be too small a part of it, and you would probably be adding in the biggest knight possible to try and make it up to 2000 points and have something close to a working army. But this is Imperial Agents in a nutshell. But a fun game against Genestealer Cult would be wonderful. This is how it would go. The Vindicare Assassin can kill Kelamorphs and Reductus Saboteurs despite their lone operative ability. With a shield breaker round, of which you get 2 in this detachment, the Vindicare can wound troublesome Ridge Runners on a 2+, and that causes D3+3 mortal wounds on that 2+. If you didn't want to use the shield breaker round, the Assassin is wounding it on a 3, with mortal wounds caused on a 4+ because of the Micro Melter rounds. The Calidus Assassin can remove D6 cultists like all of the time with her anti-infantry AP-2 shredder, and being close to Genestealer cults will stop any effective stratagems because they will all cost an extra command point. If she is charged, even by a locus, her fight first triggers first, and she can kill that locus leader. Just beware of hand flamers, but with orbital oversight, you can become untargetable outside of 6 inches. The Eversaw Assassin is rushing around. Overkill increases his move by 6 inches, but this isn't an advanced move, so he can complete actions after using it. And in this detachment, it is twice per game. So in another battle round, you get him into combat, and with 3 extra attacks for 9 combat attacks, with sustained hits 3, you can tear through cultists and their characters. It's a shame there is no stratagem to give reroll hit rolls. But all of that carnage is to allow the Coluxus Assassin to drop in. With their small base, being only 1 model, and the ability to arrive with a 3-inch deep strike instead of 9 inches, they can fit in small gaps left by the biggest Genestealer cult horde. Their esoteric explosions can finish a damaged Ridge Runner, then the grenades will cause mortal wounds on a 3+ instead of a 4+, but their real target is of course the Psychic Magos and the Patriarch. Use Will Sapping Salvo to get sustained hits on your 6 psychic shots. They become damage 3. You only need 2 of them to get through and they wound on a 2+, and then the Patriarch dies, the planet is saved. Doesn't that sound fun? But the Xenocreed detachment gives a lot of characters a 3+ Fear No Pain as a strong counter to precision attacks. Then it's less fun. But it makes for an enjoyable special game. I would like you to click the subscribe button. I aim to have 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and the number is getting close, but the time is ticking down. With new detachments on the theme of 2 different armies coming together for the Knights, all that awaits is a detachment for the Genestealer cult, including the Tyranids. You can take a peek at how that would look. My darlings and viewers, have a great day in Detachment December.